There's this little virus out there in the world that seems to be messing with more than a few things, but today what I'm going to tell you about is how that's going to impact you as someone with a lot of tech and a lot in your smart home. Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by telling you about a virus. I know it seems strange, but to be honest, what I'm seeing in the market right now, what I'm seeing with contacts in the industry is telling me a bit of a story, and I wanted to share that with you today. Now, I'm by no means a healthcare professional, and so I'm not going to comment on the virus or how any of these things are being handled. I'm really not here for that, and I can barely take care of myself health-wise. So we're really not here for that, are we, folks? So what we're going to talk about more is the realities of what's gone on in China and is now starting to go on in other parts of the world and how that's going to impact you. So let's get going. See, if I break down the situation for you, Chinese New Year ended on February 8th this year, and largely that's when people go back to work. Otherwise, before that and for a pretty extended period of time, people are gone. They're out of the office, they're not working. Lots of components of businesses are shut down in a lot of ways, and I mean, that's New Year pretty much everywhere around the world. But for people in China, this is an extended period of time. Now, the Wuhan quarantine had been on for about 2 weeks at this point, and this issue was spreading out further and further, and there was more and more people staying home. And really what happened was lots of these people never went back to work, or at least that's what I've observed, and that's what I've been told by a number of people in the industry. See, what usually happens when Chinese New Year ends, and I get to see this firsthand as a YouTuber and as a tech YouTuber specifically, those people come back, and the attack that occurs on my email and in every different communication method I have, it's really intense. All these people come back and they are hungry for sales. They want to get products out and they want to get marketing happening for their products. Usually I'm sitting here at this point in the year wondering, how am I going to work with all these companies, and filtering out lots of them that I'm not going to work with. So that's what I'm used to. And what happened this year was complete and utter silence. There was literally nothing in my mailbox, and that didn't make any sense. We've had great growth here on Automate Your Life. So it didn't make any sense, and I started to reach out to different people. As you heard the news, they weren't responding. They weren't at work. And the responses I did get were few and far in between, and yes, very serious about the situation. Now, I'm recording this on March 5th, and I will tell you that this is still going on today. What's more is this is going on in all parts of the business. It's not just the marketers or the salespeople staying home. This is going on in lots of parts of businesses throughout China still today. The expected horsepower for manufacturing right now in a lot of these companies is around 30% this week. That's the expectation for a lot of tech companies, chip producers, PCB board manufacturers, all of that industry. They're talking about getting to 30% capacity right now. Now, these people are still not in the office all the time. And when they are focused on things that are trying to kind of get the business back moving in a lot of cases, because they have had these downtimes that were seriously extended. So it's not business as usual even now, and I don't think it will be for a lot of March. What's funny too is that the shipping process for a lot of products has slowed as well, and has slowed to the point where even if these companies have inventory available because they've managed to get manufacturing either to occur before Chinese New Year, or they've managed to have some manufacturing capacity during this time, what's funny is the shipping processes are not occurring anyways. There's a lot less coming across in terms of these kinds of tech products. So it's not just the manufacturing, but it's also the shipping that's being impacted. Now, just imagine as other companies start to have this situation, and it does appear that this is going on. You can look at South Korea, which has obviously major impacts for companies like Samsung, but it also tends to be a downstream component manufacturer or a final component assembly, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the R&D for companies like Samsung, and there's lots of countries right around this area that are starting to feel the impacts that are downstream components of manufacturing. So it's not like as China comes out of this and gets out of this situation that the rest of the manufacturing and shipping and all of these processes will just return to normal. If these countries start to have these issues, we will see this problem continue. Now, with all of this said, what's going on and how does this matter to you? So first, I'm going to start out with the companies. Companies are already talking about, large companies are already talking that they are missing expectations for profit and for revenue. This is already occurring, and they're saying, sometimes you don't even have to read the fine print, that this little virus is messing with so much for them that they are way off expectations. And that means they're going to have to do something about that, because that's never okay. And we're seeing effects in the stock market already based on statements like this. But, for you personally, you don't really care what a bottom line of a company is. You care how it affects your bottom line, and I'm getting to that here. Before I move on though, I want to start a new segment here on Automate Your Life within our weekly news videos, and this is intended to be a resource for you. It's intended to give you something that you can action today and get something out of it. Now, I'm going to let someone named Montana, who's going to introduce herself to you guys, do this weekly segment, and I'm really excited to start this off. So let us know what you think about this. Now, without further ado, here's Montana.
Hi everybody, my name is Montana Getty and I'm new with Automate Your Life. I'm an up-and-coming news and sports reporter, so I hope that some of my work background can have some value for you. This little virus, well, it's not so little anymore. Over 99,000 people have already been affected, and there are so many people who haven't even been diagnosed yet. As the numbers continue to grow and this virus continues to spread, people are taking extra precautions before going out in public. The affected areas can be found on a map that is constantly being updated, so if you think someone around you may have it, well, you may not be wrong. Back to Brian.
Thanks, Montana. Let's get back to the impacts though. So I'm going to give you 3 impacts very specifically to the smart home industry and you in general. Now, number 1, we are already seeing events canceled, and a lot of events. Google just canceled Google I/O, at least as a public event in their amphitheater there. It's gone, it's done. We're not having Google I/O this year like we have in past years, and we have seen other conferences get canceled. The companies, these big tech companies, are already restricting travel and actually have canceled travel in a lot of cases to anyone going outside of their country. So this is already creating an isolating effect in a lot of different ways, and those events being canceled will mean that announcements that you were expecting and I was expecting could be delayed here. And specifically, that really is a big deal for Google. They have to find a way to still get these announcements out because they have a lot on the line. So they're talking about backfilling with some kind of online event, and I'll keep you up to date on that. But these events being canceled will matter to announcements, product announcements, service announcements, all kinds of impacts there. The lack of products getting out of China or getting out of the overall manufacturing process, again, if this hits other countries as it appears to be, this will continue to cause companies to miss sales expectations, but it will also cause inventory levels around the world to drop. So what we are looking at is initially a drop or a continuing drop of inventory levels around the world. And we'll talk more in depth about what I see this pattern looking like in terms of inventory levels and sales and things like that, but you can expect inventory levels to continue to decline. The third impact is related to new products coming out, and I can tell you firsthand right now, there are a couple of products that I know that were in R&D phase or within Kickstarters that are now being delayed, and we will continue to see this because not only are the manufacturing people out of office, but the R&D people are out of office, and they're not able to travel. They're not able to head to conferences to create connections that they need. There's a lot of restrictions going on here, and it's causing companies to miss their previous guidance or expectations, not only on sales, but on product releases. So they can't announce something they don't have, and they can't make something because they can't get it done. And Wise is the latest example of that, with their keypad for the Wise lock being delayed already. Now let's talk more in depth about inventory levels and sales and things like that, because this is what will affect your bottom line the most. For a while, we can pretend that this is going to end relatively soon. China will get back to normal. There'll not be a relapse of impact in terms of this virus in that country, and we'll pretend that other countries aren't going to get hammered by this, even though it kind of looks like that in a lot of countries right now. Let's pretend for a moment. What we've had is this massive loss of sales revenue, of inventory, of manufacturing, of overall capacity for the year, and a lot of companies are going to be sitting there wondering what to do other than we got to make money. On the small company side, what I've already seen in the smart home industry is a real loss of overall cash. And I think this was always expected. For these smaller companies, they got investment. They got investment a few years ago, and now they're starting to run out of some of that cash in some cases. And again, I'm not going to mention names. I've put this out there with my patrons in the past, and I can't mention names. This is just my sense, and this is not people telling me we're out of money. This is what I've seen just being a YouTuber and working with these companies a little bit. So the smaller companies, I feel like, are going to be in a real pinch in some cases, and this might cause the end of a couple of these smaller companies. Now, as you kind of move bigger in the scale, a bigger company that's flush with money, and I can name a bunch here, Google and Amazon and Apple and Samsung, and you can even get into companies like Wise that are continuing to get sales. They're continuing to have pretty good cash flow overall as a business. Those companies are going to be fine, but what they're going to look at is that missed expectations. And, I think as you get later and later in the year, Q3, Q4, they're going to be looking at it, and they're going to have held pretty strong to prices because they don't have the inventory during Q1, Q2, and probably into Q3 a little bit. They haven't had the inventory to put on any sales. So you come into Q3, you look at it, you're really missing revenue expectations, you're really missing profit expectations. What do you do as a company? You try and blow out a lot of inventory in a lot of different ways. So I think we'll see that later in the year really hit hard. But initially, as these inventory levels continue to drop down, and as companies continue to have less and less products, retailers have less and less products, those sales won't go on. When you look at a country like Canada versus the US, just because of our sheer size, the amount of people that we have, we're not going to get the same inventory levels as somewhere in the US with so much market access. So I think the lack of inventory is going to hit smaller markets even harder. And you can say this in general, there's lots of history and trends behind this, but what that means is certain products are with high demand, low supply, and even lower supply now because of all of this. That pricing model could get way out of hand. And I think we're already starting to see it on a couple of products. I've noticed a couple starting to trend up here in Canada already. And the other thing is lots of retailers go and they buy up lots of inventory too. So you will probably see in countries like Canada and in relatively isolated markets, you're going to see inventory drop so low that prices will skyrocket. So you're going to want to watch out for this, I think. So if I kind of summarize, Shipping, manufacturing is way low right now out of China, and it could get worse with other countries becoming infected, so to speak, with this little virus. It will continue to impact a lot of different markets in a lot of different ways. Tech is going to be delayed as a result, and so is a lot of R&D, I think. Conferences are being canceled, and really in the end, we're not going to see sales here of any sort of magnitude for a number of months, and this could mean drastic pricing changes depending on where you are, probably less in the bigger markets, but more in the smaller markets. And we really have to have a look later in the year, I think, in terms of our buying power around this, as long as this situation does not continue. So I hope that's a good summary right there. And if you guys have more questions, leave them down below. Now, of course, I'm going to keep you up to date in 2020 as we continue. So I want you to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you're getting these reminders from us at Automate Your Life. Otherwise, you can go look at our 50,000 subscriber giveaway video. Maybe you can get a couple of products for free there. Get entered into that, or watch some more of our smart home news. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching, and of course, don't hate, automate.